Okay, T, hit me up. What do you got for me? Hello, welcome. It's me.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the North Leeds Jitz podcast. Today on the show, we're joined again by Ricky over at GB Bondi. I think it's the third time I've interviewed you, Ricky. So you're getting up there in the hierarchy of people I've interviewed, to be honest.
A veteran.
Not to make you nervous either, but this podcast will be sandwiched in between a podcast with Professor Roberto Lima Gordo from Half Guard fame, and then Kendall Roosing. So you got good company there.
Oh, okay. I'm. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thanks. Couldn't have shared that at the end.
Do you want to, add some more pressure to this podcast?
Okay. Should be fine.
Good. Well, I'll just have a quick catch up, and then I'll just shoot you some general jiu-jitsu questions, man. So, it's been a while since we last properly spoke, and since then you got your brown belt, man. So congratulations on that. How was that?
Thank you. For me, after getting my blue belt, I haven't felt too much of a shift in belts. For me, it's more or less the same thing. I remember telling my professor when I was a white belt, I only really care about getting the blue belt so I can go into the GB3 classes. And I think I've stuck to my word. Since then, it hasn't really bothered me since which belt I am. I mean, it was an honor to get it. And it has, I think it was the kick I needed after the lockdowns and everything here in Australia to help me get back into competition. Just because while purple belt was definitely a challenge and a great thing for me to try to overcome, we have a lot of really good brown belts. Purple belts are still a lot of, national people, locals, but a lot of our brown belts are going international and doing very well internationally. A great example being Lucas Kennard, I don't know how to say his last name, Kennard, who came third at the Abu Dhabi Pro, or the world champs. So even if they aren't in my weight class, there are a lot of high quality guys that I will have to fight, which has terrified me slightly into kind of picking up my game.
Right. So what does that mean for you, like, to pick up your game? Because there's a lot to unpack just in that, but we'll go there first.
For me personally, there's been two main elements. I've always prided myself on being relatively technical. I have met Lucas at tournaments and events, stuff like that, and it was kind of obvious to me that I wasn't that technical anymore. So I've been doing a lot of self-study, a lot of work with some of my teammates. I have a pal of mine from another Gracie Barra called Wilson. He's helped me with a lot of my drilling and getting kind of focused on problem solving my own issues as opposed to outsourcing them to a professor or a coach. There's been a lot of Danaher consumption. So lots of falling asleep in front of my phone or computer.
A lot of 1.25 speed on the PJJ for
that. Ooh, it gets dry. There's a Lachlan Giles, of course, but he has another black belt called Jeremy Paul Skinner. And Wilson has some of his DVDs as well. And I found those to be really helpful too, especially in like leg lock and leg lock defense. So for me, currently, I've focused a lot on no-gi just because it's where all the material was. In that sense, like the instruction was the easiest to get there. Most of it translates across and everything. And, finishing and breaking mechanics are all more or less the same. So that on the technical side. On the physical side, to put it simply, I've tried to become an ape, just as physically intense as possible. I've always struggled with physically being able to keep up with my competition. Even if I knew I could beat this person, I don't know if I can beat them 4 matches in, or if I can beat them 2 matches in because I just get really tired or I don't play things optimally. And as of last weekend or the weekend before, I had quite a few more fights against some brown belts, and I felt for the first time where I think I lost a fight, but I still had 8. And I remember thinking, I have never felt this fresh coming out of 8 fights. Wow. But I feel great. Mentally, I had a whole separate issue. My mindset wasn't in the right place, but physically, I felt amazing. picking people up, scrambling really hard, putting in the intensity. So I was really happy that I can now physically perform like that and not have to die every time to do it.
Quick aside, because I do have a question on that. When Ricky says he's relatively technical, he's being very modest there. Like he pretty much goes out and just wins whatever he's doing. So he's being very modest there. But you hear a lot of people saying when it comes to like strength training or cardio kind of training for jiu-jitsu, they often say, "Oh, just do more jiu-jitsu." Is that, in your opinion, a good answer? Is that naive? Where does that stand?
I think there's some specificity required to it. So I've actually been taking some of the adult competition classes and the kids competition classes, and I've been trying to think about this problem for a while now. But what exactly makes jiu-jitsu cardio? And I was reading through one of Danaher's posts, and he puts it really well. It's not necessarily about cardio, but really efficient movement. So I ended up being the best example. My gym numbers and my fitness numbers are so appalling and abysmal in comparison to most athletes I know. So for example, I once had the pleasure of training with Bruno Lima up in Portugal. He's now black belt competitor. He won brown belt Europa Cup. He's a fantastic, phenomenal athlete. And we were talking about gym, and he was super strong, super fit. And I could not, in my days, ever come close to doing what this guy does. Most of my white belts on blue, actually, most of the people in my gym are stronger than I am. If you talk about just bench press, lat pull, I am super underdeveloped. But I am really good at not getting tired in rolls. It's a bit of an odd skill to have, but without sacrificing too much in terms of position or submission threats, I can go for so much longer than I should be able to. Now, that took me a while to realize is a taught skill and not so much like a genetic factor. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're just a fit guy." And I always used to kind of take the compliment like, "Yeah, I'm fit. That's why I don't get tired." And I remember my girlfriend asked me so my house down the street, straight line, uninterrupted, 150 meters, 200 meters to the traffic light, and then 200 meters to the store. And she's like, "We need this now." I couldn't make it to the traffic light. I couldn't run the 200 meters at pace. I had to kind of, "Oh, wow, this is, okay, you know what? I'm going to make sure I traffic light the supermarket nonstop. It's 200 meters. I can see it. It's right there." Couldn't do it. Both times. I was like struggling to breathe and everything in my head. I was like, but then how am I doing that in training? So now what I've come to realize is saying more jiu-jitsu to get more cardio is correct, but there's some constraints I want to add. There are a few things that I can do that are particularly unique to me that I found that other fit people can't do. We have a lot of CrossFit athletes. We have a lot of long distance runners at the gym. Sure, you could do an explosive burst of 6 minutes and then take 2 minutes off, do it again. I'm really good at 20-minute rounds. So for me, the duration isn't the problem, and the break time isn't the problem either, right? And that's, of course, I'm particularly efficient. But then as we start trying to train in other people, I've used two main things to help build cardio. And it has been working over about a 4 to 6 week period. First, as default. So this is just normal sparring, 6-minute rounds or 5-minute rounds, and 15 to 30 seconds break. So this starts getting us in the habit of you finish a roll, pick a partner, get into the next roll. There's no like laying down, dying, etc. Yeah. I have noticed that a lot of schools kind of take 4 minutes, like picking partners when you have 30 people. We'll pick each partners. It's faster just to deal with the issues than it is to partner everyone up. Go for it. Pick your partners. You have 20 seconds. Go for it. This sort of turnover drastically helps increase cardio for a lot of people because now you get used to doing more jiu-jitsu per 30-minute section. Instead of losing half of it to rest, you now have barely any rest. The second one, which we've just introduced now as a bit more of a extension to that, is called a double-double. So you do double the rest and double the duration of the roll, which sounds great, but when there's only 20 seconds rest and a 6-minute roll, 12-minute rolls, 40 seconds break can get really hard. And this kind of helps a lot of our, especially younger, less experienced students, help pace themselves and help understand a little bit more about their ego. So I did realize early on that a lot of people are like, I can't do that. I'm sick or I'm injured or la. And it kind of clicked in my head. if athletes can train, like, competitors get injured all the time and they have to keep pushing through. You just don't train at the same intensity. Like if you're sick, you don't push as hard. So if you're tired, it's the same thing. It's a physical ailment that doesn't let you perform at the same level. So turn down the intensity. And if you can't, that's now a choice. Like you have to decide, I don't want to lose. I have to win. So I'm going to use all my strength. And then I'm going to take a break. Or lose and train more and more and more and give yourself more opportunity. So those are the main ones recently I've been using a lot. Reducing break time and increasing roll time has helped a lot in terms of everyone's cardio and fitness overall.
Yeah. We kind of do a very similar thing here. We do 6 or 7 6-minute rounds with a 30-second rest in between. And sometimes the challenge is that, the people that are getting after it there, they're starting the round before it even the bell goes. And then there's a few people like, still drinking their water or, 5 minutes, 45 seconds in, like looking around. It's about getting the whole team to like get on it really quick and start the round. That's sometimes the struggle. And I like what you said about the ego thing, because we don't let anyone kind of sit out rounds. So we basically just don't let anyone use the excuse that fitness is a thing, because you can just lie there and bottom out and get beat, 8 times in a round. Like, maybe the only caveat, just don't throw up on the mat, please. Right. So it's not so much, we're trying to get them to think about less about themselves and more about the team, because if you are really struggling fitness wise, then that's one of your teammates' opportunities to work their mount attacks or attack from the back. And it's an opportunity for you to fight through some adversity and develop as a person. So we try and get them to think about the team rather than the individual. And that seems to not only just help with their cardio and their like personal development, but also brings like the team together quite a lot, because they stop, like you, I think it was when it might be you or someone else on the podcast, they were talking about competition team training and how that it really brings the community together. Having, and it's like usually the comp team people that will be the closest friends wise as well. When you start to have that kind of mentality amongst just the, other general population of the academy, I think it really brings in the community.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with you. I mean, I really like the way you put that. I should start saying that. I took the much more direct approach of, if you're going to die, do it on the side of the mat, please.
Go make it nearer the door so we don't have to carry.
Yeah, just if you're not going to roll, just roll yourself over so everyone else can get rolling. But no, it does definitely help a lot. One of the things I found a lot, we have a new kind of, let's say, younger generation of competitors coming up, and a lot of the older guys or people that aren't interested in competition are pushing themselves more just to make sure that person can get their roll in. We had a really valiant example of that on Saturday, where it was a double, and it was the last one, which is always unlucky. So the last roll's 12 minutes after an hour open mat. And one of our white belts is 4 minutes in, he's just gone limp, and he's like, I have nothing left in the tank. I have, even just like laying here, I'm worried I'm going to throw up. And his partner was one of our competitors, and he was just, okay, just drill arm bars. And he's like, he looked like Rocky, just laying there, like, just take the arm. And he's trying his best just to hang on for like 8 minutes, essentially, of him just being submitted. Every minute he kind of give himself a big push, try again. So I do definitely agree with you that it helps bring in that sense of community when there's that common goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking kind of still on competition stuff, we recently started like the kids competition team here, and you sent me over some great stuff for that. I'm yet to implement it because I'm kind of worried that it's a paid for session here at Gracie Barra Bondi. So a lot of the kids do 2 sessions, and then their third session of the week will be the comp team class. And for me, it's a new challenge, but I would like to do more with them. But sometimes it's feels like a difficult task, because I kind of compare it to the only other kids comp team I know, which is over with you at Bondi. And I'm struggling to see how I get these kids, who some of them have some really great natural talent, to be like, an Eric Fridlis kind of level. I'm like, there's such a many years gap there. And it's hard to see that pathway. What kind of advice would you have?
You are in luck. So I actually just solved this problem for myself. So my issue is the exact same, but in a similar capacity. I already have the kids up here. I have my Eric Friedlis, I have my Alicia's, I have my like top 10 in the world class kids. And then I have normal children. How do I get these kids to be able to train with them? So I've made a separate sub program of the kids competition team. We now have them split. There's the advanced class, the advanced squad, particularly. There's the development squad, and then I made the advanced kids curriculum. And now these three curriculums are all connected, and they have a let's say logarithmic progression over about 4 years. The number one difference, and I actually wanted to change this because I answered differently last time I was on your podcast. The number one thing I've realized is two main factors that are going to affect these kids the most to get them to progress. One, challenge. When I opened the advanced class, I made it very clear. I was almost like too much with all the kids. They're normal kids. They put their hand up, they say, I want to do it, or I pick them. Those are two ways you get it. We split the class, they come over. Guys, they learn 2 techniques, and they each have 5 steps. You're going to learn 3 techniques here, and they're going to have 10 steps. It is very hard, and I really want you to learn them. If you're not going to pay attention, if you just want to muck around, that is fine, but you can't do it here because this is where everyone wants to learn these really hard moves. So you ask you to do it over there, right? I have never in my life seen such a rapid turnaround in any student ever compared to this advanced class. I've had kids that I've had for 4 years, and their entire time they have been nothing but naughty. They're always really the charismatic kind of class clown. They're always making jokes. They're always talking. I had one kid, he's the most liked kid in the gym. So he's always mucking around, always being a show. He did 2 advanced classes. The third one came in, didn't say a word the whole class. I told him to do a hard double leg, picks the kid up, drops him. 2 weeks in, I want to go to competition. And I have done no conversation to him, nothing. But just by him having harder roles, because it's now a select group of hard people and more advanced techniques, all of a sudden, the challenge is enough to get them motivated. And this has happened to just about every, let's say, problem child I've had in the past that, talk too much, all of them. I don't correct behavior in that class at all anymore. So that for me was one thing that I found was really good. Getting them to Eric Friedlis. So this prepares them to go into the competition class. Once they're able to, they have a good foundational knowledge of techniques and they have good enough behavior, we can then get them into Dev Squad. Dev Squad is designed to only really work on 2 things: building habits. So we get them to do homework. They have like a little notebook stuff. They do weekly writing just to get them in the habit of doing small increments consistently. And then they have some pretty advanced techniques. Now, the techniques are like, close guard armbar, but I'm essentially just rewording Danaher's. The reason I do this is because I've now noticed the single biggest differentiator between athletes that improve quickly and athletes that don't is working memory. How well an athlete can take in, let's say, like 8 digits of information, like 8 bytes, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, hold it in their head, do it, and then remember those 8 steps. This is in particular one thing I've noticed now in hindsight. Eric Friedlis is beyond bonkers at that. He can hold stupid amounts of information for incredibly long periods of time, enough so and better than me. So he can now remember things that I've taught him 3 years ago and go, oh, we're doing it differently now. What do you mean? Well, you said step 4 was this, and now it's this. So that was a really good indicator to me that he's really holding onto this information. Since using this approach, we've been doing it for about 6 months now, where we focus more on them trying to, instead of caring about them learning the move, I need to expose them to a certain level of technique for long enough that they just get used to that's the level I should operate at. And in that sense, now, after about 6 months, we've seen across the board a really large improvement. Even if the techniques are super basic or super flashy, it's now a lot easier for me to just tell them at any point, here are your steps up to like, currently we run about 8 or 9, and everyone can do the move. Sure, there's like some movement issues, like, wait, how do I like adjust my hips? But they remember the step is to adjust their hips. And that is a much easier thing to correct because you can like physically just grab them and go, do that. Oh, okay. But if they don't remember move hips, there's really not a lot you can do. So that for me has been one that has helped a lot, especially now. I have two boys that came from another school and they've been training with each other for years. So they have a very set kind of pattern. One kid does a double leg, one kid does kind of sprawl, this kid does this defense, this kid does this counter, and they have a very set pattern that plays out most of their roles. And I couldn't really get it to change. It was very hard stuck for a few months. And of course, they were both making mistakes, hence why it was a recurring pattern. And then I noticed one day, about a month ago, both of them were playing the same game, but more technical. So now the kid that's doing the double leg isn't grabbing, like grabs the leg, loses the grips. Now he transfers to the belt. So the kid on top to counter it, instead of grabbing the front head, the two overhooks, now starts grabbing an underhook to stop the drive forward. So then the kid is now rotating, and they're doing similar-ish things, but now with many more steps inside of all of them. And that for me was, okay, good, because now while it looks like they're not improving, if that kid now tries to double leg a kid somewhere else and that other kid has nowhere near the level of information or knowledge, my kid's going to win, or at least be able to win that exchange. So advice I would give to you based off what I've learned there is you have to, and the first bit's going to suck. If you don't kind of get them motivated, you're going to get a lot of, I don't remember the move. I didn't pay attention. So you can get a lot of that. So have some patience with them for about 6 months. You got to have faith that they can learn more advanced techniques. The biggest thing I've realized talking to more and more black belt professors or coaches of other schools is a lot of people seem to have this distinction that kids can't learn that. That their brains just don't get it, la. And the more I've done coaching, especially at the high level, the more I realize they can. There's still only one thing I haven't been able to teach my kids, and I've seen other kids do it. So I know it's possible, is pressure passing. I don't know why. All of my kids like bullfighting and knee cutting and being fast. There's only one kid that likes holding people. But apart from that, we've done K-guard, matrix, kiss of the dragon, knee shield. Wow. We've done the Gordon Ryan mounting system with like double underhooks climbing up to S mount. They did to Roberto Jimenez. We've done a lot of pretty front headlocks. We've done freestyle wrestling, Greco wrestling. We've done some pretty high. I got a judo black belt to come in and help us to teach some essentially adult judo just to get them going. So overall, a lot of them can do a lot of stuff that would be considered well beyond child level. And even if they can't, in their head, it's building the notion that they can, which then encourages them to try and learn these, 10 to 15 step moves and progress from there. So I think it's just consistency, keeping the same level of technique for a while, using the same concepts over and over and over again for a while. And over time, it starts getting easier and easier.
So it sounds like there's again a lot to talk about there, but just so I get this right, seems like a very defined like development pathway just to get into the competition team there. So you've got a kid that comes into the academy, and then what's the prerequisite for them to be able to go to the advanced kind of part of the class?
So advanced, I have tried to make as low bar for entry as possible, because that's where I want to do a lot of the development, if that makes sense. So in my experience, when you want to work on someone and help them improve, put them low bar to entry, make it easy for anyone to get in so they can kind of help each other. Once you want to start pushing the boundaries of what is physically doable, now you've got to have a much higher bar for entry, or else you're going to get a lot of kids that aren't going to be interested in that level of intensity. So you must have a gray white belt, so about 6 months-ish, with the exception of juniors. So once they're older than 14, they're pretty switched on. They can usually keep up with a little bit of patience. So that's the only exception. But for LC2 in particular, gray white belt minimum, and then you have 2 ways of getting it. Either I pick you, so I only pick comp team and kids who have specifically come up to me and gone, I want to be in that class, so can you always put me in? Those 2. The other one is now that those kids are picked, does anybody else want to go into the advanced class? So this is now anyone that's above a gray white can choose to try it. The reason I've done this is because, for example, I'll give you the best case. I have 2 girls, one girl, and she has 2 friends. One's in comp team and one is let's just say she's only a 2-stripe white belt. She just likes to have fun. And when this girl's in, she'll do the advanced class with her. And when this friend's in, she'll do the normal class with her. So I don't know what days it is, but she chooses when she comes in, she chooses when she goes out. So then the kids have a little bit of freedom, like, no, I want to have my fun today, muck around, do whatever, or I want to go really serious and train hard.
Mm-hmm.
We also, for a lot of the people that want to kind of try build themselves up, they can go advance, and then just decide that's a lot. I just want to chill for one session. There's no real pressure for them, if that makes sense. So I give them that freedom. It also allows for kids that are really, the benefit that I've realized now, kids that are traditionally naughty, that I wouldn't normally have kind of put in my head, oh, that kid will do well in the advanced class. They want to try it because, there's prestige to it. The class is the same, so they see it and they go, oh, that looks cool. They go, and all of a sudden it's not behaving. So now for me, that's also an added benefit, is it helps expose more kids to it, and therefore more kids can kind of show me how they respond to it and help me develop the program from there.
And from a logistics side of things, so the advanced class runs alongside the normal class. It's just separated off to a different side.
Yeah.
Right.
Logistically, it's a nightmare. I teach it alone.
Right.
So I have 3 kids that are good enough in most classes now that I can teach it on them and they don't have to see it, or they just remember it from Monday.
All right.
So I use those same 3 kids pretty much every time. 2 of them are in comp team. I demo on a kid, and then I say, go. I run around quickly, try to see if anyone's doing anything crazy wrong, but most of them pretty good now. And then we just bang through the techniques, and then we do rolls at the same time as the other group, but again, separated the whole time. And the other side has 2 or 3 instructors, and they're running the normal class.
Yeah. And one of the problems we found is that if you stick to, I guess, just a normal kind of GB curriculum for their kids, like the 45-minute session, oftentimes it won't leave time for actual rolling for the kids. So what we've done is in the comp team class that I'm running currently, we don't actually do a lot of new techniques. It's just trying to get time doing actual rolls, because otherwise it's pretty much just a bit of specific training at the end. How have you found that? Do you make more time for rolls in usual classes?
So in usual classes, I have a very firm rule with myself. I am known at my gym for running overtime because I love teaching. I really enjoy getting into advanced techniques, stuff like that. And I always get carried away. And that means less rolls, or I've run the class late. So for kids where we can't run late, every single time I believe it's 25. Yeah. 25 minutes into the class, stop. 10 minutes of rolls from 25 to 35, which is 3-minute rounds. And then we have the time for the 5-minute games and la. If the advanced class wants another one, they get one more roll. They don't do the game, and then they come to the line. For comp team, they have 2-hour classes. I couldn't do it. We tried to do it in a 50-minute session, and I was like, I'm going to tell you, Professor, my kids are so fit. If I do exercise with them, I can't do anything to them in 50 minutes. I've tried. I remember we did a 25-minute plank and then 25 minutes of just straight burpees, right? And they finished. They had 5 minutes of water, and they're like, rolls time, I'm ready. And I was like, you guys should be dead. You shouldn't be moving. What are you? So for those particular classes, we take out 2 slots. So on Friday, we take out so we have LC1, LC2 juniors. We take out LC2 and juniors, and that's the comp team class. LC1, LC2 is combined. And then on Saturday for the advanced squad, we just gave them a new class. So once the adults finish at 2, then from 2 to 4, it's the comp team class.
Right. And then you got the development pathway. So you got the kids into kind of they're allowed to do the advanced classes. And then you got the development pathway before they get chosen for a comp team. And how does that work? Is that a period of time where they have to do these kind of homework assignments and other things for you? Or is it?
No. So for me, the way that we currently are trying to run it, because I'm experimenting now this season, hence why none of it's properly finished. Comp team has 2 paths in it, the upper path being advanced squad and the lower path being the development squad. But it's both considered competition team. Kids in the advanced class have now been asking, how do I get into comp team? And I think the requirements are you have to be 8, you have to have done 2 competitions, and you have to have shown that you have a overall sound understanding of the advanced class curriculums, good behavior, good attitude, that sort of stuff. Once you meet those criteria, you can then be nominated by the staff. So we nominate, because an issue we've had in the past is different staff members have different opinions of different students. So one kid will be great with me, and then the other three coaches will go, yeah, with you he's lovely, but with us, he's the worst possible kid. So we all have a discussion about it just to make sure we're all on the same page. And then we then invite that child into the development squad. So that's the current one. This is where we start putting the bar for entry much higher. It's still not that high. Advanced is pretty brutal. So development squad is still pretty easy to get into if you've been computed a few times. You want to start taking a little bit more seriously. Dev squad is still pretty accessible. But that's currently the path for it.
And the dev squad will train alongside the comp team, is it?
So the development squad gets their own kids competition team class on Friday. They get their own specialized one because I like to give attention to both the senior students and the young generally speaking students.
So it's like a split class again. So it's like the Friday session, and then you've got comp team over here on the same mat, and then dev team over there.
No.
Okay, so it's literally
we
a separate
have
session.
Comp team, it's together. Dev squad is on, and then while dev squad is training, the advanced squad is allowed to join that class, but I don't focus on them as much.
Okay, all right.
Does that make sense? So the two squads are the two portions of it. The Saturday class is exclusively for the advanced class. The dev squad can't go there, and that's where we get into all the funky stuff. So really hard moves are in the advanced class.
And you said about the seasons there. One of the issues I've had in the very short time we've been doing this, literally since December, is that new kids will join, and then I had the idea initially of doing a very Danaher thing where a lot of Danaher's squad will play the same kind of game, right? So when they go to then look back, okay, the system that we implement didn't work here because of X in this match. What can we all learn from that and implement it into our game? And then basically all get to learn from, if it's just your own individual game, you have to learn from each individual match, but then you've got a way bigger sample size to work from if everyone's playing a similar game, right? So I had kind of an idea to work that, but then I'll start teaching something for, something simple like a tripod sweep. And then, the next week I want to work tripod sweep into like a knee cut pass. And then there's like two kids that have just shown up who haven't done the tripod sweep yet. So they're all confused, and it's hard to kind of progress the class forward. Technically. So you work in kind of a season
class or for a normal class?
This is for a comp class.
Okay, so for competition class, I have two requirements for this exact issue. Now, I had a similar idea to that with the same game for everyone. Crashed and burned in my case. I stopped that about 3 years ago. For me, I'll give you the best example. We had a boy called Leo, and Leo is by far one of the best submission artists I've ever met in my life. If you give that kid a lapel, he's going to choke you. And I was teaching single legs. I'm like, guys, we can do wrestling, single legs. And from that class, someone mentioned like, oh, but what about the guillotine? And I was like, well, that's illegal for kids, but you could do a loop choke instead. And Leo was like, oh, can we just see the loop choke? Showed him a loop choke. From that single leg, all Leo got was a loop choke. And then it was his favorite submission for the next 3 years. It was the centerpiece of his entire game, was a submission I didn't teach him, but he saw in passing.
I remember Leo's brother Hugo has a mean loop choke as well.
Yeah, exactly. I then tried to teach Leo and Hugo that same single leg, or I remember a triangle adjustment was one that I wanted particularly, a triangle adjustment to make it tighter for 2 years. And they refused under all circumstances to ever do it. And in my head, particular example, we had to kind of click, yeah, I have no control of what they're going to like or what they're not going to like. So I'm going to teach a pretty broad spectrum of moves and let them pick and choose what it is they like.
Right.
So from in that sense, it allows them to kind of, pick their style. The stress on the coach is way higher because I have to remember everyone's games and everyone's problems.
Yeah.
So if we're coaching in a competition and I know your De La Riva sucks, but you like playing it, I've got to try and navigate you through that in the match. Oh, Lord. So that's always fun. So I like to teach a diverse structure, but for the dev squad in particular, because I do still think some things are foundational. right? Danaher talks about this as well. He's a dictator for the foundations or the building blocks, and then once you try to advance and get creative, he's a lot less on top of you. And I very much agree. So in the development squad, you are allowed to miss a certain number of classes, and it's nothing crazy, but I think you only miss 3 out of the 10 or 12 week program. And this is designed to generally deal with this. Oh, I don't know how to do a Kimura. Well, we taught it in class. And secondly, especially Dev Squad and the advanced kids class, those ones are designed to kind of set that very wide net, especially because the advanced kids class is a 16-week curriculum, much like the normal LC1, LC2 juniors programs. If you teach 3 techniques over 16 weeks, you can cover a bunch of moves that you think are going to be really important for them. And then development squad is where you can start giving more feedback. So a kid will, you'll notice that a kid has a really good close guard, but then for some reason he never gets up after he does a dummy sweep. Or for some reason he doesn't control the posture when he does his close guard armbar and all the kids are pulling their arm out. Or he doesn't, one of my kids actually doesn't move their hips. They do arm bars by just kind of kicking their foot in people's face and people get scared and tap, but he's not, putting them in danger of an actual armbar. And this is where we kind of start cleaning stuff up. So, okay, we're doing, I don't know, mount armbar. I notice the hips aren't moving. Okay, hips aren't moving, try to fix that there. And then when I see it later on in close guard, remember the same hip thing from the mount, and we try to relay everything through these, related concepts. So I have found that helps a lot, especially when they get more time to roll. So all the comp team kids get about, I think it's minimum 35 to 40 minutes of rolls per comp class, which gives you a really big sample size to start helping correct mistakes, right? You start looking at a kid for 2 rolls in a row, both rolls you got taken down. Okay, let's try to work on a guard pull. Something like this.
Right.
And because they all choose their own moves, if I can mentally stay ahead of them in terms of techniques, I should be able to coach all of them simultaneously in different directions through anything, in theory.
And I wanted to go back onto, I do have other questions, but apart from kids comp stuff as well, but it's quite interesting stuff, I think. The kind of the requirements to do the class, I've been kind of hesitant on implementing because I don't want to take away kind of the fun kind of enjoyment side of things. I don't want to be like, oh, you have to show, it's you have to show up for every class, do all this kind of entry requirements, things like that, because I would like them to still enjoy it. But then I also found it interesting what you said about the more challenge you gave them, the kind of more switched on and enjoyed they seem to find it. Yep. Is there a balance there? Have you found that it's best just to kind of go in and say these are the standards and you've got to meet them? Or what's the balance kind of thing?
I'm actually going to give you a legitimate quote from the comp team itself. So one of the things I've noticed is the kids are a lot wiser than a lot of people give them credit for, especially if you give them really well-structured questions. So I asked the kids, hey guys, question. Do you want me to make the comp team classes more fun? And they said, why? And I was like, well, I'm pretty dull. Like if I'm rewording Danaher and I'm being all strict and stern, there's not a lot of play time there. And they were like, yeah, but you're not the fun part of the class. And I was like, okay, what is the fun part of the class? The techniques and the roles.
Right.
So for you guys, doing jujitsu is enjoyable. And they were like, why do you think we do it? And it's like when you teach kids, you get so used to them liking the games and liking chatting and liking that you never think that there's one psycho that's like, yeah, I'm here because I enjoy the technical development journey. So especially the older kids in the advanced class, they don't generally ever want to play games. They just want to get more rolls in.
Yeah.
They just want to keep training more. They want to learn more. We have now implemented, by request, a stretching and Q&A session at the end of every comp class. So for about 10 minutes, we sit down, we stretch, and they just ask me questions about their roles. By request, a 10-year-old went, Ricky, that the rest thing we do at the end, can we cut that bit out and just ask you about techniques? And that for me really helped change my perspective on what it is that I wanted to do with comp class. Because I had a dad complain, it really shook me because it was a big complaint that like, man, we're pulling the kids out of comp team. They hate it. And I think you need to remember that the kids are kids at the end of the day and they need to enjoy themselves. And it really kind of shook me because I was like, oh, am I going too hard on the kids? Am I taking like that would change my entire viewpoint on the program if I were to change that perspective. And this is why I asked them. And it kind of occurred to me that I might not have made that class hard enough. Because if these kids are all saying, no, we want more technique and more roles and harder training, and I have kids that are saying, I hated it, how did they get in? Like the door should be, you know what I mean? They shouldn't be able to enter if they aren't ready for that level of intensity of training and they aren't clear on the requirements. So in that sense, then the development squad is where I can start either accustoming them, so getting them used to that sort of intensity over time, building the habits, developing them as athletes to then survive that training, or they realize this isn't for me. So in that sense, it made a great environment to deal with that.
Right. And on that parent kind of side of things, have you found that there's those kind of entry requirements and the strictness of the class? Is that something in you guys make, I think you make parents sign an agreement as well, right? Like these are kind of what
parents and athletes,
parents and
kids and outside. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you found you get more support from the parents by doing it that way? Or have you found pushback because they miss a lesson and now they're annoyed because, you know, maybe the kid can't come to comp team if they keep missing them or stuff like that?
Yes and no. So it has made, because there's always an end range to any restriction you set, right? If you say 3 classes missed, there's going to be someone who missed 4 with a pretty valid reason. And you're going to have to, so this is something that for me personally has been a bit of a journey. I suck, and I mean suck beyond belief at not following rules. If I said, I remember there was one time, Professor Pedro has learned now never to leave me in charge of customer service. We were doing the lockdown. We came out and there's a requirement. I'm the COVID marshal. So Pedro said, Ricky, you're going to be the door. No one can come in until they've scanned this QR code. Got it, boss. I went to the bathroom. I come back. I'm at the other side of the gym. A mom with 3 kids walks in and I start yelling, hey, stop. Stay right there. I run over. Scan in, please. Pedro and at the time another very charming salesperson employee we had both start like just crying. Oh no, Ricky. They both pulled the lady aside. We're so sorry. He's in training. He doesn't know what's going on. I just get really into the whole following the rules. So for me, it was very difficult because especially recently now that we started cracking down on the rules properly and enforcing it as a program and having pride in what we provide, it did start creating problems when people, we don't know what our schedule for school is going to be like until second week of the term. So can they come to week 1, week 2, and then maybe miss like 5 weeks because we've got basketball, or we can't go to either of the competitions, et cetera, et cetera. And that created a lot of tension for me having to tell someone, I'm sorry, no. And I found a few things help a lot. The 2 biggest ones, we have parent info night. So before every term or before every major change, we have a Zoom meeting with the parents. I have a nice 20-page PowerPoint presentation. We set aside an hour and I walk them all through. Here's every single thing you're going to have to do. I send them a link in the chat. Here's all the links and the dates for everything. Put them in your calendars now. And that usually helps parents kind of get in the right headspace weeks in advance. We do it 2 weeks before the season even starts. So ages before, they know what they need to have. The kids need to have a mouth guard, a water bottle, and a notebook. Okay, my kids got all 3 of those. He needs to be free these 2 weekends. They need to be free these 2 weekends. Okay, cool. And it helps them clarify because we had a lot of, the comp was this weekend? Oh, no, I was at a Bucks party. Great. I get that you don't want to miss your best friend's Bucks, but And the second one, I have a big mega document written where I've tried to kind of explain to myself, like the operations manual essentially of comp team, to explain to myself why everything is required. And that has helped a lot for me, especially communicating to parents why we have these restrictions. So pretty much any restriction or thing we do in the program, I know why we do it. So the great example we had was a parent was like, my kid does rugby. He can't miss any of his games. He's the New South Wales state team captain. I'm like, good on him. Great competitor. He can't go to any competitions. I want to put him in comp team, though he will never miss training. And we had to say no. And then I was like, why not? And after a lot of thought, I came back, I wrote in the thing, if you aren't competing, this level of training doesn't make sense. If at any point, right, I am digging into you because you're not millimeter perfect on your triangle, or some kid has just swept you and you're tired and you didn't want to stand up, and I'm grilling you. As a 10-year-old, I'm done. I don't want to do this, Dad. Right? If you're not held accountable by that competition, if I don't perform, I'm not going to do what I want to do at the competition, I'm not going to get to show what I can do, then at any point you can just give up and the rest of the program just falls apart. Does that kind of make sense?
No, it makes sense.
So in that sense, all your motivation is linked to your ability to test and prove your jiu-jitsu at that high level. If you're not going to go to the high level, everything else falls apart.
Makes sense on that kind of team mentality of things as well, right? If there's one person in the team that you know like isn't there to compete and isn't going to be on the kind of the sidelines, like at your match as well, it's like he'd almost seem like an outsider, which wouldn't be nice for that kid in the first place, and it's not fair to the rest of the team as well, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we can move on from comp team stuff now, but I want to say just how impressed I am with you, Ricky, to be honest, because like I know how much work like now on the back end of side of things on the academy, like it takes, and how much time and thought and how many like hours go into what seems like a simple like little thing, like a 1-page document or a 1 slide of a PowerPoint. So, everyone who listens to this from Bondi should be like mega proud to be part of any part of Ricky's coaching, because it's a lot of work. It's a hell of a lot of work, and honestly, like I've done over maybe 150 podcasts with different jiu-jitsu guys now. Like no one, especially in Gracie Barra, I think is putting into, at least that I've spoke to, has put into that level of detail for a kids competition team. Even just what we've discussed here, and I know there's even more goes into it than what we've discussed. So you should be really proud. Everyone listening to this should be super excited about what Ricky's doing, and hopefully we can take a little bits of that and start adding it in gradually here at Round A as well.
You get me. I will say, just before you move on from that, because if we are giving appreciation, especially recently, there's the kids. One of the big so I was working on this sort of structure because I introduced it in January over Christmas. So over the Christmas New Year, me and my professor, we did Australia Day, like a 6-hour session, Christmas Eve, a 5-hour session, trying to brainstorm through all the logistics. A lot of these kids are so committed, like beyond anything I've seen in adults. And that's as an ambassador and as a person who competes for a living. Some of the stuff these kids are putting in is wild. And for me, it feels almost like a disservice not to put in that effort back into them as a coach, if that makes sense. So if you are from Bondi and you're part of my program, you're amazing. You're doing great. Keep it up. And I am immensely proud of all of them, and that does help a lot. And secondly, I get a lot of support from parents, especially the kids competition team parents, especially the first Professor Geddes, I think, did a seminar in Australia, one of his big speeches, and he was talking about how the parents started organizing the events separate to him. And he was like, wow, I can really feel the community growing. And I had my first one, literally, it happens next week. We're all going down to nationals, and 2 of the dads told everybody else in the program to go to 1 hotel room. And I hadn't really noticed. I just started talking to the kids and I was like, oh, you're at that hotel as well. You're at that hotel as well? Who isn't at that hotel? And they've organized like a 35-person dinner. Everyone's families are coming. All the athletes are all in one spot. I have 17 kids in the program, all of them in one place for dinner. As far as I'm aware, that's never been done in Gracie Barra. That's across 4 different schools. That's not just Bondi. That's, HQ, St. Peter's, other great gyms where the competitors visit. And that for me was, wow, like that's that's a lot of effort. A lot of these guys are full-time, parents, businessmen, multiple kids. And I barely have time to organize dinner with my girlfriend. And they're here organizing dinner for me and this team.
Yeah.
And again, thank you to parents that have supported the program and myself through the past.
Amazing, man. I wanted to, you can answer this from an adult's perspective, your own perspective, a kid's perspective, what you teach, but I wanted to talk to you about something competition where there's a balance between sometimes kind of that going for the win, like the submission, and, playing the game and kind of, not doing anything stupid to lose points in the last few seconds to get the win, right? And sometimes those two things align nicely. And sometimes you've got to either, I remember speaking to Victor Estima on it, and he was saying he quoted Ayrton Senna, the racing car driver, in that if a racing car driver no longer goes for the gap, he's no longer a racing car driver. And, if a jiu-jitsu athlete no longer goes for the submission, he's no longer doing jiu-jitsu. And Victor, I'll tell you, he did caveat that in that later on in his career, he did, play the game more. And that's when he ended up, winning his world championships and stuff like that. But very early on, it's very much go for the submission, go for the submission. What do you coach? What's your own philosophy? And how do you find that whole aspect of the game?
Oh boy. So, if any of my kids listen to this, they're going to know what I'm going to say to this. I'll give actually a story. So I had one of my girls competing. She's a phenomenal athlete, Gracie Barra Ambassador for Oceania, wonderful kid. And she'd just been working on her mount attacks. And she goes, she competes, she wins, she submits the girl. Everyone's cheering. Yeah, great job. Whoa. She does it again, best of two. Right? And they were back-to-back matches. She finishes, she runs over, gives her mom a hug. The mom's like, we're so proud of you. That was amazing. Her dad, great job. Her home gym coach was amazing. 10 out of 10, good job. She gets to me. Was that okay? There was no cheering celebration yet. Was that good? Did I do the right thing? Even in a submission, a lot of the kids that I coach are more concerned with, was that optimal? Than winning by submission. I very much am a believer in doing optimal jiu-jitsu. For some situations, optimal is winning by points. For some situations, optimal is winning by submission. Most of the time, especially with kids, it's winning by submission, right? If you're just a good enough kid, there aren't that many high-level kids, you're going to sub most of them. And honestly, the same should be said for adults. However, I do believe there is a place for points. Two main situations. One, building confidence. If it's your first 5 comps-ish, right? Win. Get yourself kind of built up, especially your first 5. It means so much to you to win or lose. You still haven't kind of gotten used to the process of, developing and learning, at least most of the time in my cases that I've seen. Win some. Winning 20-0 is still a good performance. So I don't like to say sub only or nothing because, I'm not going to tell a white belt you did badly if he wins 25-0. It's still a good performance. That being said, in my eyes, and this is something that took me a lot of Danaher listening to realize, because I used to exclusively play points, especially someone who was always physically underdeveloped. It seemed so hard for me to get an arm, but man, some of these guys are so strong. It was crazy. I was like, I don't think I can do it. It's not physically possible. And Danaher, once I heard him say jiu-jitsu is a series of pins or controls leading to a submission. And it kind of got in my head, if I do the submission thing correctly, I should be passing guard with control. Because if I pass guard and I'm scrambling and I jump on a neck, sure, I did it. But optimally, I would control my partner in side control. Then I would mount them with control to give me the highest percentage chance of submitting from the mount, optimally speaking. So in that sense, it's not necessarily that the points or the submissions kind of matter on how you win. If you're doing optimal control, it should always lead to a submission. And if you do it, so when people, in my head, it kind of becomes, do I just jump at every armbar I see, or do I stall and play points conservatively? And there should definitely be middle ground where you play in your game should lead to both control and submissions. Does that kind of make sense? So I'll give you a really, really good example that everyone kind of understands. If I'm on top position, and let's say in side control, I have made up a footlock from top side control. And I dive and I fall back. And most people would tell you, that's a dumb idea. Why would you go backwards, like, throw away the position you had for a submission? And it makes sense. If I am doing optimal jiu-jitsu, I have a much higher chance of finishing if I stay on top, progress my control, and then submit. While I'm doing that, I'm also getting a bunch of points, like just coincidentally. So in that sense, it shouldn't be a risk to go for a submission if you're doing everything correctly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. That's pretty holistic. It also helps you kind of work on just improving overall. Like the goal is now not submit or win by points or just win. It's, well, if I just keep improving, eventually I'll get to something optimal, and then there I'll get both.
Yeah. We've mentioned Danaher a few times, and as a coach, like where do you place Danaher? You think he's one of the best coaches? You think
he's number one? He's the best by far. Yeah. Look, I can only grade a coach based on what they coach. And I haven't had the opportunities yet to meet that many other coaches and see their styles. But luckily, most coaches are also athletes. So I can just see their performances and grade them based on that. So in that sense, for example, Cyborg, I don't really know the guy that well, but I can watch him compete and see, well, if he's making this level of technical mistake, probably shouldn't then be, coaching much better than where he is, if that makes sense. Danaher, to the best of my knowledge, is a head and shoulders above just about everybody else in understanding of jiu-jitsu. I personally don't think I don't like Danaher. Everyone says Danaher is like, oh, he's so dry, so boring. That, to me, as a teacher, I understand his point where, he is, as far as I can assume, maximum accuracy. Like everything he's teaching you is precisely the exact right answer. In my head, if you were like 0.1 off and significantly more engaging, I would say that's better, which is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Because if you have to learn 15 points and you can't stay awake past 4 because it's just so dry and lengthy, but you get to 15 with this other dude and, like a quarter of a step up here is not exactly what he said, but pretty close. That for me is going to be enough. And especially if you're trying to build a team, I would much rather have 100 guys at 14 out of 15 steps than 2 guys at 15 out of 15. And everyone else just couldn't stay awake.
Right. Yeah. I like a lot of dance.
I do think, sorry.
Good. No, you go ahead, mate.
I do think a few other people in the rest of the world are catching up, or at least developing well above where they were pre-Danaher, if that makes sense. So people like Lachlan Giles,
I was going to say,
with the assistance of Danaher, I'm going to say, I don't know, I'm not there, but I'm assuming Danaher saw Giles saw one of Danaher's DVDs, and it kind of, the possibility of what was there came to fruition. Once you see it be done, you can, well, then I can chase after that dream.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden he explodes and he becomes like this phenomenal athlete. Craig, similar deal. Vince Danaher skyrockets in performance. I mean, he was already really good before, but you know what I mean? So a lot of people are now aiming to try to replicate this systematic approach. The overall style of teaching has now changed across the world, thanks to Danaher. So I think that in the next few years, we're going to see different styles and different approaches start performing, at least not similarly, but, getting much higher than before. Great examples of Daisy Fresh, right? We've heard of them they get a little bit of traction. All of a sudden they're everywhere. Their guys are phenomenal. How are they doing? Things like that. So I think he is now the best. I don't know how quickly he develops. He doesn't put out repeat content that often, so I can't really compare him to 2 years ago. But he's been ahead for a while. I think he'll stay ahead for a while. But, the rest of the world is getting closer than it was 5 years ago. Yeah.
We mentioned Lachlan a few times. I think Lachlan is probably up there as well with one of the best coaches in that. well, you know, from its instructional standpoint, like they're so well organized, and like the quality of them, you can tell, like, you know, you see someone and they've done an instructional, but it's just like they filmed it. It looks like it's on an iPhone. Like you can tell maybe the quality or the care they put into the what they're teaching might be analogous to the care that they put into how they filmed it and things like that. And you see Lachlan's is like just head and shoulders above everyone else, like from the quality of it, but also how it's organized. You can tell because he's a PhD, isn't he? You can tell he takes it like an academic learning approach rather than just, hey, here's the technique that I do, you go do it.
Yeah. I will say it is, I visited Absolute once. I think it was a year or 2 years ago. And I remember it was one of the most upsetting ordeals of my life. I've met a lot of these guys and I've competed against some of the lower belts, but it hadn't quite hit me how far behind I was, because I didn't really do no-gi at the time. I competed in no-gi, but I was just kind of stalling and, playing the game. But I was doing a technique. I asked a question about something basic, I'm sure, for them. And he was like, oh, well, you can do that from a Kimura or a footlock. He touches me. And immediately, I'm doing Kimuras wrong. My Kimura doesn't do that. Lord. 1 second. What's this? Do you know how shameful it is that as a purple belt, you have to ask, hey, how do you do a Kimura grip? He hasn't done anything. He just grabbed my arm and going, mine doesn't hurt like that. Grabs my foot. Hey, how do you play single leg X? Puts me in knee shield. How do you do knee shield? So even if it's organized and everything, I think just the as you were saying, that learning process, academia sort of developed way of thinking is really yielding returns, especially in jiu-jitsu, as it does in every other field of intelligence that we have. With some really impressive techniques. I am essentially teaching super diluted versions of both Danaher and Lachlan, and I seem like a wizard to most. But I am very aware that these guys are operating on a very different level over years of consistent improvement in techniques. And it's really it's exciting for me. This is my version of the advanced class. The challenge that presents for me now to essentially relearn everything and restructure everything in a short frame of time is super exciting.
Yeah, I don't know how else I could do it I do the same thing basically. So I don't know how else I would do it as a coach, because I essentially just go watch what Master Carlos teaches for GB1, go find Danaher teaching it and just go further faster or something else, right? Then I just, teach a watered down version of that. And it just doesn't make sense for me to do it any other way, because as a purple belt, a new purple belt, my knowledge of jiu-jitsu isn't very good, and they've already all figured it out. It's like just having the cheat codes, isn't it? And it's these guys have already figured it out. There's no point in me trying to put my own little flair on it, beyond the actual teaching style of it. A few jokes there and something, but the actual content, I can't really deviate from that because they know way better than me. So I couldn't imagine trying to teach,
You know what?
Very much at all.
I want to disagree with you. I remember training with you too. You have some pretty good half guard, Mister. I know you've got some tricks up your sleeve, but there's one thing I heard when I was at Absolute, and someone was talking badly of Danaher, and I was like, "Whoa, you cannot offend Lord Danaher." And they were saying he makes mistakes too. He's just a smart dude, but he's still a dude. They were saying that if you watch some of his early material, he's changed what he's taught. He has upgraded his views, which means he had to be wrong at some point, which means he's not right about everything.
Yeah.
It's just his way of doing it. And I'll give you the best example. I have this dumb move I do, where essentially if you knee cut me, because I'm long, turns out now it's not because I'm long, but I thought it was, I would kind of heist up and hook my leg over the top and start taking your back.
Right, yeah.
Because people kind of turn, they leave the leg up, and I'd hook it and pull them back. And I showed this at Absolute, and they were like, that won't work. And I was like, sure. It's worked for 4 years pretty consistently against literally everyone. I used to call it my black belt killer. It was a very good, surprising move. and I could still do it. Like, of course, there was much more trouble. They weren't knee cutting me as much, so I couldn't use it. But one dude fell for it, and I got him. And I was like, guys, look, it worked. So then I was like, hey, come here, try it. It worked. And we did a bit of specific thing like, hey, this isn't as stupid as I thought. This is actually kind of good. And then one other guy helped me make it into a twister. And now it's like a very foundational part of my game that I use. And in my head, I'm like, I don't think Danaher teaches that, but that's because that's something that might not be as high percentage for the style he plays.
Yeah.
Right. If you're always talking about creating distance and framing, absolutely, this isn't a good idea. But if you've lost the distance, you don't have frames, it's a viable option. Same with buggy choke from bottom side control, right? Like, yeah, you don't want to put yourself in bottom side control to do it. But if you're there and you have angled and framed correctly, it is a pretty viable attack.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I do think people introducing their own little style of flair isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's foundationally sound. You know what I mean? Like, and you're pretty foundationally sound.
I think that's why it's good to also have like a broad spectrum of coaches that you learn from as well, right? Like if you just stuck to Danaher, then I think that would be a mistake, just as kind of sticking to any kind of one other system would be as well, as right. So it's not like, I'll watch like stuff from Rotolos or Lachlan or, whatever it is that I'm kind of wanting to work on. I'll just try and find, right, who's kind of the best of that? Who's like the best teacher of that? Find somewhere in the middle, like, and find that. I wanted to talk to you about, we've mentioned the Daisy Fresh guys, and I think maybe people wouldn't recognize this in you, Ricky, but something you're actually really good at is marketing. Do you recognize that in yourself, or?
Nope, I've literally never heard it.
You are? Okay, so if you look through like the GB Bondi Instagram, once you kind of like started to take it over a while back, look through your own Instagram, I think kind of the things that you write and things are actually quite inspiring. I think one of the biggest changes in jiu-jitsu right now is its marketing. So you look at, like we mentioned, the Daisy Fresh guys, they're essentially famous now. Yeah, they win a lot of stuff, but also because of how good the marketing is around them, right? Like the story around it. And I feel like the marketing in jiu-jitsu is very much skewed kind of no-gi at the moment. Do you kind of recognize that? Yeah. And that might be because of things like, Danaher and Don Ryan and the people, the athletes making it interesting. What is it that kind of thing that's bringing you more towards the no-gi side of things right now, or is it been something else?
For me personally, it is just the instruction. So once I trained with Lachlan and all them, it kind of hit me that, Jesus, I am so far behind. Like, this is painful. And I didn't really get because it was like a one class passing thing. Like my hotel was opposite the gym. So I was like, well, if I don't say hi, but I didn't get to kind of delve deeper into that. And I started, especially with like the thought of maybe getting a brown belt. I wanted to get a little bit more serious for competition and blah, blah, blah. And I just lost the 2 leg lockers in no-gi. So I was like, you know what? I want to delve a little bit deeper into this. And the more I did high-level no-gi and practice high-level no-gi and study high-level no-gi, the more I wondered, well, what would the gi version of this be? And I couldn't find that answer. And that for me was kind of where I was getting more and more put off from the gi, because I've also, competed at a decently high level in the gi, and I also don't know the answers to the problems they're posing. So in that sense, like I've trained with some of the high level, I was mentioning some really high level brown belts, and I've had, been lucky to have some visit or, common events or just at competitions on the warm-up mats, because I really like figuring out when I'm bad. And I find myself like a kid asking these, very advanced people such basic questions just to check if like the information I know is correct. Because if it's not, I would have no way of knowing.
Right.
And that for me is kind of where I get a little bummed out, if that makes sense, about the gi specifically. Because, for example, I heard conceptually speaking, beat the knee, which I'm very proud of because I thought of this before Danaher said it. So I was like, yeah, quick win. that doesn't apply the same way in a lapel guard. And in my head, I just went, it doesn't apply at all, right? And then it took me, I got Keenan's lapel encyclopedia. I figured out how to do lapel guard decently, but I still couldn't figure out how to pass it too well. Mm-hmm. And then a pal of mine transfers the DIM, great lapel guard, actually used to train with Braulio and Jacob. And he started kind of explaining to me, no, it's the thing still applies, but you've got to take into consideration more variables like upper body position relative to where your lapel is and what like frame they have on your lapel. And to me, that was kind of, oh, that's great. Now, next question. Oh, I don't know. So because I never had that sort of friction with any of the no-gi stuff, there was just a really easy, I don't know, try it, I don't know. Oh, there it is. And then in the gi, there was a, who can I trust? If that makes sense. Like, okay, right. I'm going to look at Keenan's stuff. Keenan's the best for lapels. I'll give him that. Sure, absolutely. Is he teaching the best stuff for lapels? Because then I've spoken to quite a lot of lapel guys that are saying, yeah, Keenan doesn't necessarily teach the best like guard passing stuff. Maybe his new passing DVD is good, but he's always giving kind of cagey answers. Okay, that's annoying. Okay, then maybe the Atos Jiu-Jitsu stuff is really good because I don't know who's going to be there. And then I talked to lapel guys and Andre doesn't really do too much with like, high level lapel stuff. Like if you're doing it badly, he can exploit that, but against good stuff, he gets stuck. Okay, well, this is a problem. So in that sense, it makes it difficult for me as an athlete to decide where to invest my time. And I just figured, look, I'm going to be better off if I just get a really good foundational game because Danaher is going to give me that. In no-gi, I've translated most of it over to gi pretty well. So I'm just going to fill out that path first. And then once that's, more or less where I want it, then I can start looking to fill these gi specific problems is the current approach that I'm trying to take.
Out of interest, are you more excited for ADCC this year or the World Championship?
ADCC, yeah. Put it simply, the trials, the Oceania trials were scheduled for the same week as Worlds. And I genuinely thought I'd probably miss Worlds.
Wow.
I haven't really been training in the gi. I've been training a lot of no-gi. Yeah. And I've been pushing really hard to get myself to be able to at least like be a contender in the trials. I know that if I go to gi worlds, like I've met some of the guys that won like Euros and stuff at Purple, they eat me alive. Like I cannot perform at that level yet in the gi. I don't have the answers I need. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was like going to brown belt worlds, fully aware that I couldn't really make it at Purple because I just like the information I had kind of hit the limit. I don't really see myself doing much better at brown. Like sure, I'm more athletic and stuff, but I'm not doing optimal jiu-jitsu. So if it's not optimal, I don't really want to do it. Like unless I know I'm going towards being better, competing doesn't really drive me in and of itself. If I'm going to worlds to test what I think is optimal jiu-jitsu, okay, so optimal, try to fix it, try again.
Yeah. Is there any kind of divisions you're particularly excited for at ADCC?
My division. 88 is pretty good. Yeah, 88. Yeah. I'm cutting down. Cutting's been fun. 88 fighting, but for Oceania, I'm really excited. I think it's 66. One of Lachlan's black belts, Jeremy Paul Skinner, is fighting in there, and he just won Subversion, one of the super fight events that we have here in Australia. Hi, Subversion. Thank you for having me. And he did really well and beat Taliesin Suarez, gi phenom and absolute, killer of a guy. And for me, I was like, ooh, I want to see that dude compete. I want to see that dude competing at ACC because in no-gi, he looked dangerous. And I'm pretty sure he's going to win. Like from what I can see, that guy is going to take it. And I want to see how he then does against Nicky Ryan and how he does against all these other international level black belts, because then that for me is kind of a really good gauge. Like if I can then, touch that guy and train with him and then he beat Nicky Ryan. Okay, I now have Nicky Ryan here. This is great. This is, right. I can exchange it. This is all the answers I need. So that for me is always really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a lot of mates now, mainly from one school. Essentially, I was lost to a bunch of guys and they were all from the same gym. So I thought, man, this gym must be good. So I started befriending all of them to try to figure out what they were doing differently. So their professor, Keela Loxodi, won last time. He won the trials last time, did a great performance against Murillo Santana. Honestly, I haven't watched everything or fully understood it because I thought he won, but he somehow lost by like a penalty or something. I'm a bit confused, but he did really well and it went all the distance. And he was in pretty controlling positions for the majority of the time. So I'm excited for that. I think he's also 88 though, so my division. And then Isaac Mitchell, who is an Australian. He's training with Craig Jones. He won Subversions a few times ago. He's been taking out pretty much all the main names. He just won Brown Belt Worlds, also 88. So I'm not going to lie, I'm just going to be a fangirl at this point if I go to ADCC trials. Those are the main guys I'm really excited to see. There is one other guy. His name's Sebastian Attard. He took a win over me at the last Subversion. He's a blue belt. So at least he was when he beat me. And at the time, I was a purple belt coming to brown. So the guy is amazing. And as a blue belt, I think he's beat like 4 Pan Pacific champions, like black belt Pan Pacific champions. Wow. The kid's incredible. And I think he fights at 99. So I want to see how he takes on that division and what he can bring to the table there. That's got me excited as well. I think those are the main ones, yeah. Amazing. 66, 88, big guy at 99.
As a coach, how is it you find time for your own training as well? Because it can be difficult, right? Because do you find time to actually just do a lot of classes? I imagine not.
It's really easy. You just don't need sleep or money and all your problems are solved. So most people will hear about like the classic, I think Victor Estimo was telling us once. He was like, you teach the 10 a.m. and then train 11, like gym, and then do the 12 o'clock class, then train gym again, and then have lunch, and then train gym again, and then teach the night classes. And train. Like, he was like, yeah, it's in every living hour of the day. And as I've said, I was physically underdeveloped. So there was a period where I could only train like once or twice a day. If I did weights, I was done. Like I can roll for ages, but if I have to do, my person likes doing cardio at the gym, like burpees and stuff. Done. I can't do more than like 50 triangles.
We're done for a week.
Yeah, at the time I couldn't. So what I have done now, which I think is a really good mix, I do 2 sessions. So I have my lunchtime session, and that's my porrada. That's my hard session. If I can find anyone over 90, 100 kilos, better. I like them heavy. I like them aggressive, right? So there was actually a period where I asked the gym, I was like, hey, do you have any really aggro males? And they were like, yeah, can you send them to me, please? Like, I found that especially in Nogi, I was really struggling with like that sort of aggression and intensity. Like I was always very calm. So when someone just blew past me, I would kind of just, oh, well, okay, I'll take this tactically. And I wanted to be able to at least deal with it a little more proactively. So lunchtimes pretty much every day is my own personal training. And I have blocked out all work. So I don't do pretty much any work before 2 o'clock. That time is training. So either gym and train or just training. Nighttime, we essentially go straight from training, shower, eat, back to work for the kids' classes. Kids' classes or like, errands or something like that sort of thing. So I finish training, shower, go do some errands to the gym or go do a little bit of paperwork here, print something out. 3:30 to 6, kids classes, adult class. And then I have another session at night with the advanced class. Usually I'm teaching, but then I've kind of organized it with the staffing to have either a second member there or a second assisting member or someone just helping me out to kind of watch the roles so I can train.
Right.
So that lets me get in 2 to 3 sessions a day.
Right. So what have you found is like the most kind of optimal way then to get the knowledge you're learning from, instructionals and stuff into your game? Is it that you're going to watch and then drill, then try to do it in live training, or what is it?
Oh, we're gonna do a throwback. I'm ready. You ready for this? Working memory.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle. Here we go. I tried to teach my girlfriend jiu-jitsu, and it hit me because I was like, she sucks. I was like, I'm teaching you the best stuff in the world. This is the highest level fringe of competition. This is the cliff of what we know.
The podcast.
No, because look, this is what I've realized. She is, she hates it when I say this. She's a genius, like well and truly certified. She has the best memory I've ever seen. So I teach just about anything at that at her level intensity in a GB1. She was a white belt, 2-stripe, and she'd get it no problem, right? She was phenomenal. The second she hit rolls, she can't hold any of it in her head. Under the stress of rolls, her working memory becomes useless. One thing that I'm really good at, because I'm usually pretty calm and not tired, is I can think I can talk to myself in rolls and go, what am I supposed to be doing? There's a frame and there's something with my knee. What is it? Most people kind of panic and, push sort of thing. So for me, that was easily the best one. So I don't drill too much. I don't have the time to. I'm also really, really ADHD with drills. They bore me to death. I do them when necessary if I don't understand something, but if I think I've got it, I'm going to try it. If it worked, it worked. I can improve on it now that I'm doing it. If it didn't work, drill it. So usually I'll do instructional. I have a drill session once a week-ish. I'm trying to get it back in. My schedule's pretty busy with my training partner, Wilson, that I was talking about that helped me with a lot. So he is very good at this. He note takes on instructionals. He has a little journal of instructional notes, little tabs. And he's like, what are we working on today? Arm bars. Here's my 4 pages on arm bars. And he's got each thing listed out with dot points. So we covered a lot of concepts there. I try to hold as many of them as I can. So currently I can work on about 3 different systems at a time, 2 techniques per system. And then I try to force the rolls to go in that direction. So currently, let's say, for example, I'm working inside heel hooks and 50-50 heel hooks. So specifically inside cross ashigarami positions using 50-50 or outside senkaku and inside senkaku.
Yeah.
And the finish I'm trying to work on specifically is the rotational, like cross rotational. I don't know what he calls it. Your knees go one way, your hand goes the other way. And the second one is trapping the heel on the floor and bridging through the knee as 2 different braking mechanisms. So I'm trying to work on those 2 per situation. I'm trying to work on front headlock, transitioning between guillotine and das. And I'm just making it up at this point. Like I got so lost in Danaher's that I'm just kind of, look, I remember thumb goes up. It should be high. So I'm just going to rock the baby till I figure it out. Rabbit hole. Yeah. So I'm working on the guillotine and the das with mechanism of finishing, not going to mount for the das, and with guillotines falling to the elbow side, thumb high, and then rolling to mount. So being able to hold that much information in your head and then actively use it during rolls makes it a lot easier to practice stuff, as opposed to being, stressed out the whole time and not being able to remember any of the steps. Just, I forget everything I do.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that is kind of for me why it's a lot, I would say, easier. As a top tip for all you and your listeners, here's an insider secret. One thing that I don't know if Danaher does this, but I love doing it. I see a lot of success with my students is the use of games to help develop certain things. So jiu-jitsu is a game that rewards certain things. Unfortunately, one of them is athleticism. So I went, I don't like that. I want to make a different game that rewards something else. And this way, people can kind of interact with jiu-jitsu, but in a way that benefits what I'm trying to get them to learn. So a great one of this is, jiu-jitsu chess.
Yeah.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu chess. You take 2 motions, your partner takes 2 motions, la. A lot of people say, that's great to help you roll light and think about jiu-jitsu. Well, not really. Jiu-jitsu chess, if played at a high enough level, isn't helping you think about jiu-jitsu. It's slowing down the game, sure, but you can now do stuff that you can't do in normal jiu-jitsu because your partner can't defend. It's rewarding good movement. If you get 2 motions, if you can do a really smooth, jumpy, spinny thing and get 1 motion out of it, that's what's being rewarded. So not to say that it's useless, it's really useful for white belts to get used to moving efficiently. White belts have a big issue where they're very kind of judder steppy, as in like when you do an armbar, for example, you want to be one smooth motion, not step, 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 step over the head. So if you make a game where you only get two, so if you take 2 steps, it's not going to work. People start experimenting with ways to make it one. The one that I use to help develop a lot of the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu is verbal jiu-jitsu. And I haven't seen anyone else do this. I'm pretty sure I've invented it. So I'm saying, this is why I'm saying it, just so I can claim ownership on truth. In 2022, Ricky said this. Essentially what we do is you do jiu-jitsu, but it's spoken. So you both sit down, you shake hands. I will say, make grips, pull guard. And there's no turns, we just go at each other. What this rewards is very clearly your ability to mentally keep track of where you are in the roll. This is equivalent, let's say, of chess masters who can not look at a board and play chess because the theory is so deeply ingrained. You want to have a good 3D model of what's going on separate to your eyes, because sometimes your eyes get covered. Sometimes you have to, feel things. So you want to have it in your head. It also rewards your theoretical knowledge of jiu-jitsu. The reason being, if you don't know the name of a technique, you have to list the steps, which when you think about it, if you go mount, armbar, bridge, it's a little bit faster than mount, post on the chest, swing around the head, grab the wrist, Brit. You know what I mean? It's much, much slower. And for me, especially after like the first time, no one can do it. It's always a nightmare. But by the second and third, people start kind of building strategies for themselves. Okay, this combo works well. And if they do this, I do that. So one guy kind of realized that guillotines off double legs are super strong. So everyone was like, double leg, guillotine, bridge, boom, suck it. And then in his rolls, he started trying to do the same thing. And I found, especially with Diva, my partner, she did a really good job of translating that into rolls, because now, especially if your partner starts trying to, throw you off or guard pull, takedown, they start doing crazy things, it forces you to now think and out loud verbalize, if someone does a knee cut, what am I supposed to do? Right? Because if you just say bridge, push, neither of those work. So what is a good answer? And then you'll hear a black belt say, knee cut, single leg. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna try that now in rolls. And she actually did it to me. It was really annoying. She did a back choke, and I tried to kind of escape. So in the game, I would usually say bridge, shoulder, back to the floor, shoulder in front of the chest. And because I say that, she then remembered in the roll, oh, his last step is shoulder down. So she just kind of nestled herself under my shoulder and choked me unconscious as I'm trying to ferociously get my shoulder to the floor. Like, no, I can't lose my 40 kilos. She loves that story. She loves it. And that for me was kind of good teaching moment for myself to realize, okay, these games are rewarding things and people are learning from them. So that for me was what I use now to help my students kind of mentally picture jiu-jitsu and help them focus while under stress. So if you want to try that with your students, go for it.
I remember actually watching you do that the first time, and the first time I saw it was in the kids' competition theme class. You got them to do it.
Yep.
I was so confused about what was going on.
Yeah, they're really good at it now. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they do say some pretty, because I am known for saying some pretty intense stuff, like as coaching advice. So as a Berimbolo defense, I've once said, like, step on their throat. Because if they try to invert, you just put a foot in their neck, they can't go anywhere. So in the game, they're all yelling at each other, pull guard, reverse del Hiva, yes to the dragon, kick him in the
throat. Neon face.
Yeah, they get really into it. No, they're all getting very good at that. And I do think that has helped them a lot, because now they can get, because getting coached in a role is always nice, but they can now take a few steps, like, okay, do this, and then make sure you do that, and then make sure you do this, and then make sure you do that. And usually for someone that's kind of like, okay, hold on, sorry, what? And now these kids mid-knee cut are like, got it, coach, cool. Yeah. It's always very cool to watch.
Oh, man, I know I need to let you go soon because I need to get to bed and stuff, but I just want to talk about just a bit about Gracie Barra, man, because I can tell you love Gracie Barra, and without leading you too much, just why do you love Gracie Barra so much, man?
This has been a tough one for me, actually. The more I go to these Nogi events, the more people ask me this, like, why are you so Gracie Barra? Like, I wear all the red outfit.
Yeah.
Look, it started not with Gracie Barra, I'll be honest. Now it is, but when I started Jitsu, I was just beyond inspired by Professor Pedro. I think I made an Instagram post about it 8 years ago, but my parents tried their absolute best to give me a good life. The 2008 crisis hit us pretty hard. 2008 crisis, yeah, the big crash hit us pretty hard, and we weren't doing that well for really long. So there were a lot of cuts and costs and stuff, and we couldn't afford a lot of things. Now, at the time, I had picked up a lot of hobbies, dropped a lot of hobbies. I was a very like ADHD kid. I couldn't stick with anything, and my parents had noticed this, and I said I want to do jiu-jitsu, and I just done Muay Thai and boxing for 4 or 5 years. So like, oh, okay, sure. What's the membership like? Oh, it's double that of boxing. It's what? It's double boxing. No, son. And then I was like, oh, but it's really good value, and the uniform is also like a few $100s. So it wasn't going well. And then the coach at the time, they gave me like a month free or something. I rented a uniform the entire time. I think I rented a uniform for 6 months because my parents wanted me to be committed. I've been training for about 10-ish months, I think, around that. I hadn't got a blue belt yet. I've been competing though. And my mom goes, oh, we have to freeze the membership because you're doing your exams. So freeze the membership, we'll unfreeze it when we get back. So it froze. Finish the exams. I lied. We can't actually afford the membership anymore. So you're going to have to quit jiu-jitsu. Now, at the time, 10 months in, I had already won a few gold medals, nothing interstate, but like locally. At this point, I was training 7 days a week, like any class that we had available that I could make, I was at. So I was doing all the classes all the time, and it was becoming a part of my life, and I was beyond devastated. So I packed my gi, I go to the gym, and I'm essentially in tears upon arrival. I'm there to say goodbye, like just to be like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't make it anymore. And Pedro goes, oh, calm down, breathe, no problem. Hop on the mat, do the class, and then we'll have a chat after class and sort it out. That was his way of saying, don't worry about it, buddy. And I haven't paid membership since. And that act alone for me left a very large impression. Especially now that I'm doing a lot more of the admin and looking at opening my own school, especially where Pedro was at the time, because his business was not that old yet. He was very young. He didn't have as many students as he has now. I was nobody to him, right? He hadn't coached me that many times. I was in the beginner's class of the other coach, and he was advanced. So he didn't even know who I was. He just heard that there was this, enthusiastic white belt doing comps. And he was willing to do that for me, meant a lot. Since he's, essentially been a second father to me, so much mentorship, so much support, encouragement, coaching, time on and off the mats. He's helped me write CVs, right? He's been a hell of a guy. And that for me was what brought me into Gracie Barra, because I started going to more and more events, and I started meeting. Then I met Professor Marcelo, who runs Gracie Barra Oceana, the area. And he really started kind of explaining to me some of the values of Gracie Barra and this and that. But for me, once I got hooked, and I mean like really in, was once I started doing the kids competition team. Because it was the first time, because it's really easy to kind of say like, oh, if you follow the etiquette and you follow the values and you work with passion, you're making a difference in the community. And I was like, yeah, cool, but I don't see it. And now for the first time, I can see it grow up in front of me. Like I was watching these kids develop personalities based on what I had taught them in class, not for the techniques, but like, don't say that to that kid. That's rude. Don't do this to that kid. It's going to hurt their feelings. Try to do this when you're in training, because it'll help you, like develop a little bit more, or it'll help push you. And over years, I'm now watching these kids teach younger kids these lessons for me. And that for me is kind of mind-boggling. Like I'm not old enough to have impact in people's lives, right? That does a 30+ thing. You're not meant to do that young. And it was incredible to me to feel that. And then once I started seeing and feeling that, I knew what I was looking for. So then all of a sudden, the women in charge self-defense workshops are so much more meaningful now that I kind of know how to identify. I am like changing some of these people's lives. We got an email. We've had, the time I've been, I think we've had about 10 kids where, someone tried to pick on my eldest child and my youngest child self-defense the kid. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Well, the kid was whacking the old one with a stick, and my other kid hip tossed them and then put them in an armbar and didn't hurt them and just held them there while they were crying till the teacher came. What's that? That is pretty. Yeah, wow, that's incredible. That's like amazing. And it's been a really big journey for me to start seeing that, start being able to put effort into that to help give back more to others. And I think that is where kind of the main fire started, for me at least. The more I do ICP, for those of you who don't know, that's the instructor certification program by Gracie Barra. And the more I study, like, the foundations course and the marketing program, and I start seeing how these values start playing once it's like written in a manifest, like in a physical form, right? It's not just an idea said in a video once by Master Carlos. It's a physical document I can read and study. It kind of starts to make sense. Like, a lot of people say, oh, it's very culty and this and that. And I definitely see where they're coming from. If you can definitely misinterpret these documents or these ideals or these etiquette or notions as a cult, I 100% understand that. I don't blame anyone for it. I get it. Boo Gracie Barra. You're entitled to your opinion. But same way there's two sides to any story, my side has been, at least especially in relation to these kids, that for me was like the big Gracie Barra sell. The idea occurred to me one day. Sorry, this gets me really, it's like my lifelong dream. It gets me emotional now.
Oh, good.
What I've done for these kids, right? The same way you would give me praise, and I've heard similar praise from the parents, like, it's a lot of passion and good job and really changing my kid's life. Imagine if that was a Gracie Barra curriculum. If the program that I've made, these benefits that I have tried to give these kids and have seen them gain over the last 4 years, went to 900 schools, right? That would change the world. Like, I could actually have an impact on the whole world. And that to me is incredible, because then it made me realize, like, 7 dudes have already done that. Master Carlos Gracie Sr. has done that with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the UFC. He completely changed combat sports. Master Carlos Gracie Jr. changed Gracie Barra, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, into a system that could be taught to anyone, anywhere, and have a positive impact on their life and therefore the community, right? Felipe Guedes he currently has the slot for best kids competition team in the world for Gracie Barra. I'm going to say I'm close behind him, but currently he's in ICP.
He's got better marketing, mate.
Yeah, that's what it is. He's in ICP, and what he teaches in there, great information. He's changing kids competition team programs. I wish I remember his name. He's a Hawaiian. I hope he's Hawaiian. He's a bold man. He teaches all the kids videos on ICP, on GB Online. It's him and the big guy. Those guys are changing kids' lives. Like, if I copy what they're doing and their ideas and then giving it to my kids and my kids see benefit, me and them benefit to the community. And that to me is insane. Like, the infrastructure is so well designed and set up that we can have this impact on people's lives, that it's incredible. At least to me, that for me is life-changing. That, like, it's I think why I'm so motivated about it. Because I realize that when I'm doing all this work, it's not just for me, it's not just for these kids. In 4 years, when I get this product, this program solid enough, this is for the world. I am hoping to be Danaher for youth jiu-jitsu. Like, if I can reframe what we think kids can do, I can change everything. And that's only possible because of Gracie Barra, because of the systems they have set up, because of the way it's set up, because of the way the franchise is designed, the values, the culture. It's not really doable with other schools. I've met other schools. I've seen other schools' coaches. I coach against other schools all the time. And not to say like, doing anything wrong or anything, but there's a lot that you will struggle to do. I'll give you the best example. I told my competition team, you are the highest level of representation Gracie Barra Bondi has. Therefore, you must wear the uniform with pride. There's not going to be any ripped gis. There's not going to be any t-shirts that are rash guards. You must be wearing the uniform because you're representing this team and our values at the highest level, right? And one of our values is integrity. We must have integrity in everything we do. I told that to a coach of another team at a competition because he was wondering why all the kids all wore the same thing. They don't have to. It was just a coincidence that time. And I explained to him they all have to have the uniform. And he goes, oh, yeah, I wish I could do that. And I was like, well, you definitely can. Just tell them. And he goes, no, it's because, everyone can wear whatever they want at our gym. So it's really hard to get everyone to, like, if we will have a comp thing, to wear the same thing as like a united team. And I was like, cool. So I can definitely see how, from some perspectives, why do I have to wear a uniform? That's a cult. But from other perspectives, that's a really, really valued part of teaching these kids responsibility, integrity, following a team, being part of a team. So for me, I see both sides, but it's just been set up so well by Gracie Barra. Master Carlos Gracie Jr. in particular has done a really good job. I almost learned Portuguese to listen to the other half of his ICP speeches. He has the videos. I can only see the subtitled ones. I almost learned Portuguese to get the other ones because there's a lot of stuff that he says that when you start looking at it with an open mind and a different lens is really impactful on helping change, at least my perspective of what we can do to help improve people's lives.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I think your vision there is really special. I think that frame of reference, kind of like they're holding the kids to a higher standard, is really unique. And I totally believe it, man. I totally think I could see Coach Ricky or Professor Ricky in a couple of years' time doing the the advanced kids curriculum on GB Online. And I believe it. If you say you're gonna do it, I'll fully expect to see it, man. Ricky, I want to say thanks so much for doing this. I think that's probably the best place to end it there. So I want to say thank you. If you stay on the line though for a couple more minutes, we can just have a personal catch up, and we'll say bye now, mate. So thanks so much for doing this, man.
Thank you so much for having me, and to all of his listeners of this lovely podcast, guys. Keep listening. These are all great. I personally listen myself. I'm going to be tuning in for Kendall Rusi. I'm going to miss my own one and just go straight to Kendall's. So keep it up. Well done, Tiernan. I always love the production. I will say, no one's noticed this, but I have copied your lighting scheme. Look at my face. Look at the lights. Look at the colors. I have copied yours exactly.